When a ghost refuses to stay where they died, when they appear harmless or violently out of place, when something disturbs their remains and they still do not rest, that is when the strange becomes the unexplained, and the unexplained becomes something far more unsettling. The British Isles from John O'Groats to Land's End is layered with centuries of death, history and memory, where castles, battlefields and ancient homes each carry their own famous hauntings and whispered legends. Yet not every presence fits the stories we expect, because some appear in the wrong places, some behave in ways that make no sense at all, and some seem to follow rules that no one can fully understand. And tonight we step into 3 of the most disturbing, unexplained hauntings in British history, from Tudor ghosts to cursed castles, hidden across England. Far from the crowds of Tudor London, too far to hear the cries of the crowd as Anne Boleyn's head was cut from her body with one swipe of the executioner's sword, Bickling Hall stood quiet and peaceful in the Norfolk countryside. 1 year later, this peace was to be shattered by the spirit of Anne herself. On the anniversary of her death, a glowing apparition was seen in the distance, becoming brighter, coming closer. Witnesses say that when it was close enough to see, it took the form of a carriage, driving wildly to Bickling Hall, led by 4 charging horses, each without a head. The footmen that drove the coach were decapitated and bleeding, and lastly, descending from the coach when it stopped, the figure of Anne, long dress dragging on the ground, her head carried under her arm. Near Aylsham in Norfolk, the original Bickling Hall was briefly the home of the Boleyn family from 1499 to 1505. Historians argue over the accuracy of the dates of the birth of the Boleyn children, but it's likely that they were all born there, including Anne. However, even if this is true, she left when she was a very small child, when their family moved to Hever Castle, where they remained until their deaths, becoming the property of King Henry VIII after the death of Thomas Boleyn in 1539. So why does Anne make her eternal journey to Bickling Hall? Is it to return to the safety of her childhood, to complete the cycle of life and death by returning to her birthplace? Nobody can know for sure. After her dramatic arrival, she is said to roam the halls, gliding with her head tightly grasped in her hands until daybreak, when her spectre disappears into mist. We can only guess at the identity of the poor souls who accompany her on this journey, the headless footmen who are doomed to escort her there every year, accomplices, sinners condemned, or demons summoned from hell. But not all hauntings follow the same pattern of memory and loss. Some linger peacefully, bound to a place they once loved, while others seem twisted by something darker, something far more dangerous. And far to the south, in the ruins of an ancient Devon castle, there is a place where these 2 forces are said to exist side by side, where one spirit may welcome you and another may try to kill you. A whisper in the dark, or a wave from the battlements. At Berry Pomeroy Castle you might be welcomed or threatened. Cold spots and footsteps where no one walks have been witnessed, but there's something more specific haunting the castle, and something much darker. Visitors to the ruins have reported a figure drifting along the battlements, wearing white. If she sees you, she will stop and wave, welcoming you to her final resting place. However, there is another that haunts these halls. If you see a flash of blue light, you'd better run, because unlike the White Lady, the Blue Lady only wants to do you harm, and might just be your downfall, luring you to your death, as she has done before with the previous residents. Berry Pomeroy Castle was built on a strategically significant site for defence, It was constructed in the 15th century by the Pomeroy family, but the land had been in their family for many hundreds of years, since the end of the Norman conquest of England. The White Lady is said to be Matilda Pomeroy, locked up in a dungeon by her jealous sister and left to die. Her spirit friendly in death, despite her tragic demise. However, the Blue Lady is said to be the daughter of a Pomeroy lord. In some versions of the story, she was abused by her father and forced to carry a child in secret. And when the time came, she was left alone with something she could not face. Her restless spirit, filled with rage at her devastating life, is said to have lured members of the Pomeroy family to their deaths and appears to visitors with an aura of malevolence, threatening them to leave the castle and never return. Forces of good and evil, both sharing a similar experience in life, both sharing the same space in eternity. But how did they end up with such different intent in the afterlife? Was it the tragic circumstances they lived through, or the inevitability of destiny and fate? Two spirits, shaped by suffering, yet divided by something we can't understand. One calm, one violent. One reaching out, the other pulling people toward their deaths. It raises another unsettling question, not just why they remain, but what they want. Because sometimes a ghost does not linger out of anger or sorrow. Sometimes it lingers for something far more specific. And when that need is denied, it does not stay silent. One calm evening, the daughters of Sir Henry Griffith were spending time together grieving the death of their younger sister Anne, when a blood-curdling scream filled the air, and they immediately knew why. In the months prior to Anne's death, she'd been so excited. Between 1601 and 1610, the new Burton Agnes Hall was being built alongside the old one, a new, beautiful home for the Griffith family in the picturesque Yorkshire village of Burton Agnes. She spoke of nothing else, her thoughts consumed with how wonderful their life would be together in the huge new house built to their exact desires. However, shortly before its completion, Anne went out walking and was robbed violently. She was taken home, just clinging to life, and with her final breaths, she urged her sisters to leave a part of her in the new house. Specifically, she asked them to decapitate her corpse and put her head in their new home so that she might live there forever. To pacify their sister, they all agreed, but when Anne succumbed to her injuries, she was buried in the local churchyard. That very same night, a scream filled the new hall, terrifying the entire family. Her ghostly head floated down the corridors, making such a racket that the sisters called the vicar the very next day, who agreed that they could dig up her coffin, remove her head, and place it in Burton Agnes Hall. As soon as they had done so, the hauntings stopped, and all was peaceful once more, leaving the family to grieve their loss. However, in the centuries that followed, as the house was passed on to new owners, there were those who tried to remove the skull. It was thrown out, buried in the garden, buried once more in the churchyard, and each time the screaming apparition would appear and give the owners no rest until her skull was placed back in her beloved home. The real mystery here, though, is that today nobody knows where it is. It's bricked up in the walls or under the floors, hiding somewhere not even the current owners know. But the halls of Burton Agnes remain quiet and undisturbed. And so the question remains, where is the skull of Anne Griffith? And why is she so scorned by the removal of her skull that she would return from eternal rest to torment those who remove it? And there are many more stories still waiting to be told. We're getting closer to 500. And when we reach it, I'll be doing something a little different.